I'm Chris, and today we're going to purify some pine sap. Let's do this real quick. You can generally find pine sap on a pine tree that's been wounded, either by an animal like a woodpecker looking for food, or by some type of bug that's burrowed its way into the tree. And you can definitely find it if there's a pine tree that has a broken branch. Anywhere that tree is going to be wounded, it's going to produce this sap to help seal up the wound and help protect itself. Now the sap you find might be hard and brittle, it might be somewhat pliable like putty, or it might be very runny and gooey kind of like honey. This tree here is definitely a honey hole of pine sap, and I happen to have this tree right in my front yard. It produces a ton of pine sap, and I collect it every year. There's a few reasons why you want to go ahead and take your time to collect this stuff. You can make a chewing gum out of it. You can use it to help seal up a small wound. It has some antiseptic properties to it. You can definitely use it as a fire starter. You can collect and purify it to make pine pitch out of it, which is really the hot glue and the epoxy of the woods. And you can go ahead and make your own fatwood to help you with the next fire you need to start. When you collect the pine sap, you're going to want to have some sort of collection device, either a bag or a tin or something like that. And if you're going to collect this often enough, you might want to dedicate some sort of knife or even a pair of gloves to doing this, because it can get quite messy. If you're going to use a knife you use every day, it's going to gum up that knife like crazy. A few other things you might need is some way to strain this. You can use a strainer like I have here that I acquired at the thrift store for like 25 cents. You can use a simple piece of tin foil with some holes poked into it to help strain it. And you're going to want a tin or two to collect the hot sap as you strain it and as you boil it down. I have a couple bags of collected sap here, and I have a jar of filtered sap from the year before. When filtering this sap down, I like to use a sawdust stove. I find that the sawdust stove doesn't burn quite as hot as a regular fire, and if I want to add more heat to it, I can just put a couple pieces of wood in the bottom there just to really crank up the heat on the thing. But I want to be able to regulate my heat when I'm filtering this down, because this pine sap is extremely flammable, and if you have too hot of a heat source, that pine sap can combust and it's going to start on fire like crazy. I mean, you're just going to hear it go boom, and it's going to start up like gasoline. Now it's easy enough to snuff out, especially if you're filtering it in a can, but you don't want to knock it over and get the hot sap on yourself and burn your skin that way, and you don't want the hot sap to ignite while it's on your skin, because then it's going to be like napalm burning on you. After we've let that sawdust stove kind of start up and ignite and really get burning, you want to go ahead and place some sort of collection device on top of there. And in my case, I'm just using a big old, I think it was a soup can or something like that. But you can do this in a couple different ways. You can go ahead and put the sap right into that can and let it melt down, or you can put your little filtering device on top of it and let the sap heat up from there and drip down into the can. Two different ways to do it. For myself, I started off using the filter on top. It was taking a little bit too long, so I just put the sap right into the can itself and let it boil down that way, and then I filtered it afterwards. A little more dangerous that way, but with the amount of sap that I had, I didn't want to be out there forever trying to do this. I wanted to get it boiled down as quickly as possible. And you'll see, it boils down into a hot liquid. Now when the sap is melted, all we have to do is place our filter over our final collection device, and then simply take a pair of pliers holding onto the can and very carefully pour that melted molten sap through our filtering device, and it's going to filter out all the dirt and the bark and whatever else was trapped in that sap, probably bugs and stuff like that too. And then it's going to filter it through, and we're going to have some nice clean sap down in the bottom of the can. Now this stuff will harden in the can, and the stuff in your filter, some people throw it away. I like to keep it because it is dirt and bark and stuff covered in sap that's highly flammable. So I can use that for starting my next fire. So in the end, you're going to end up with a can full of hot liquid sap. And over time, that sap is going to cool down and harden up on you. And you can either keep it in that can and then heat it up again so it goes back to liquid form and reuse it and use it as you need, or you can go ahead and move on to the next project right then and there in that day. In hindsight, I would not recommend storing this stuff in a jar, because now I have to heat up this jar over a fire to get this stuff to go into liquid form again to reuse it. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Definitely check out some of my other videos, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. And if you did this project today, please leave a comment below. Thank you guys so much.
I urge everybody to use caution when taking on a project like this. This stuff is extremely flammable, and if it's left unattended, it can be disastrous. Please use caution, work safe, be smart about this.